and we want the fans to have their seat. We want to score goals. We want to get them, momentum on our side. And then on the flip side is when we don't have the ball we got to be dogs.
Well, welcome everyone to Afterburn Soccer. We are live. We welcome you to YouTube. We welcome you wherever you're watching and enjoying. If you're listening late on the podcast, the audio version, we welcome you tonight as we talk about the opening weekend of Major League Soccer for 2025. A huge weekend, a lot of fun things happening, but especially a huge weekend for FC Dallas as they go on the road to Houston Dynamo and open their campaign with a come-from-behind win, 2-1. You saw the goal there at the end of the opening credits from Anderson Julio, making his official debut in an FC Dallas kit. A big strike with an assist from Petar Musa, who also had a goal earlier in the match. A gift from the soccer gods, and gosh, FC Dallas has deserved some gifts because we have been lacking gifts from soccer gods lately. But anyway, we're here. We're going to talk this result. We're going to take your comments, your questions. Please send them in on YouTube. We're here with our friends, of course, our regular Jose Carmona. You can find him at El Chico Carmona. With us also is Colin Couvert, the man in the stands, at Mr. Couv on X, and our tactical mind, Ishmael Belcora. You can follow him at Ishi Plano Fishy on X if you're on that platform. But we're excited. We've already got a comment in for someone who likes to get on here and rag us and prep us for what's to come, Jose. Right? He won't let you forget last year Dallas's defeat in Colorado. That was not a great match.
No, but I will be in Denver for the match. And actually, if you have a podcast on Monday, I'll be at his house. So
okay.
He'll be joining our podcast whether I like it or not.
We may have a special guest. All right. Well, good. Well, let's get right into it. Let's just get some reactions for this opening win. Of course, FC Dallas went into halftime down 1-0, and the goal they gave up was one of these disappointments that we were all too familiar with. Just some miscues, just a scrappy sort of goal to give up, a disappointing moment, and you had for a moment that sort of panic for FC Dallas fans of like, no, we don't want this anymore. We don't want this kind of result. And then for the team to come out and really dominate in the second half was a testament to maybe what Eric Quill is trying to do and just the change in culture. So not necessarily a perfect or a beautiful win, but beautiful in its own right for how it starts FC Dallas on this new journey. So let's just start with our reactions to this big win. Koo, we'll start with you because you were there in the stands.
Making us proud.
Yeah, making us proud. Give us your sense of what you saw from this new look FC Dallas.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. It was really weird to see what we were doing with the ball at first. So very under Nico and under Lucci both, it was a very defined shape. It was very much, you could tell it was a 4-2-3-1, or we would go into a 4-2-3-1 that would shift into a 4-4-2 defensively. It was very easy to tell what kind of shape we would take. With Quill, it's very fluid. Lots of moving pieces. Lots of you can see why the dog mentality matters now, because everyone is willing to play any position they can. If wingers had to get back to play wingback, they do, or play fullback. If fullbacks have to stay up and play to cover for like a DM if like Leggett goes forward. Like it is very much a plug and play system. The first half kind of was a little nervy, but you expect that. It's the first 45 minutes of soccer for the season. First bit of actual games for Ramiro, Osaze, and Lucho. You then have um, Houston, who is playing with two very young center backs, so they're playing very slow with the ball as well. Um, Something that for me stood out was at halftime. You can ask Austin, Luis, any FC Dallas fan that's notably out there on Twitter. I was talking with them. I was like, swap Julio for Kumungo on the wings. Dorsey is giving so much space. Like Julio can take advantage that Kumungo cannot. Kumungo is more technically gifted with passing and dribbling than Julio. Let him take on the extra man for his side. And sure enough, that first goal, the pressure built up before that free kick was from Julio taking the space, Kumungo going inside. Um, that that 100% defined the game for us, was switching those two, but also letting everyone be fluid. Like Julio switching to striker, Lucho dropping back, Musa dropping back into cam. We saw Jesus drop a lot and play right back or DM or whatever, like get back deep. Lucho would do that, but Musa would not drop that far. Knowing where to drop back to and knowing when to drop back is something that this team has gotten really good at with Quill, and it works. I mean, look at Julio's goal. Julio had shifted to striker, Musa dropped back, and was able to play a one-time ball over the top. Granted, Tarbell's old, got caught out, had to make a challenge for the ball, and ended up going in our favor. But I think this team under Quill is going to be 100% a dogfight in every game. You're not going to be able to really predict what's going to happen, and that can either mean really amazing, fun soccer or some heartbreaking soccer, which I'm here for it. So let's see how the rest of the season goes. But if it goes like it did 2 nights ago, I'm going to have no voice by July. So
That's great. Ishmael, what were your reactions to this opening season win?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most interesting bit was, like Colin was mentioning, the rotation within the front four was extremely fluid. It was to the point where, like, I started to get question marks because Musa on the wing was giving me Jesus Ferreira PTSD, right? We know the pitfalls of stuff like that when it doesn't end up working. But what I think it did is it really put a team that is nervous at its core with Houston like on the back foot, because when you have a team that gutted the entire spine of their team, two center mids, best center back, their keeper. When you do that, it doesn't matter how well certain players play in certain portions of the game. When you are consistently cycling all front four, it makes them nervous. Like it's difficult to gather um, consistency. A mistake that Ethan Bartlow make doesn't just happen, even though in MLS even in MLS this weekend happening like 15,000 times. It doesn't just happen, right? These are professional soccer players. They're not U9s out on Russell Creek Park in Plano. Like that's not what's happening. These players like lock in because these are important moments. But when you add these little um confusing elements with Musa on the wing, Julio was up top, um, Lucho was at some point on the wing. Uh, it happened a lot more when Pedrinho could we say we won? Not many, I think. Definitely not many away. Not any away. So this is a great start. Some really good elements in a uh very interesting game.
Jose, your thoughts?
I want to talk about some other things that the guys haven't talked about, and that's a change in approach and a change of mentality. And let me tell you that the past couple of years, I have been very vocal about how out of shape, out of in early preseason form, Dallas looked compared to other teams to begin the season. That's not what we saw here. We saw a team that was fit, and I mean, I was stunned at how long Ramiro and Acosta played. I'm like, I was thinking, hey, 60 minutes tops. Maybe they come out at halftime. Those guys, I mean, I think they had to be. When you get players, bringing players who have that dog mentality, they don't want to leave the field. They're like, yeah, I can still run, boss, and that's what you saw. I think those guys were there that long because they simply didn't want to come off. And like I said, fitness, fitness, fitness. This team didn't look like it was an early preseason form like they've looked for the past couple of seasons, which just drove me nuts. And when you're in shape and you fight and your mentality is to go forward, you're going to take advantage of the other teams who are also coming into here and may actually be still in preseason form. And as far as attitude, let me tell you something. Dallas goes up 2-1, right? Our two previous coaches, even possibly our last three coaches, they would have brought in a defensive minded player. They would have said, okay, close it down. Let's shut it down. We're up 2-1. Let's hold on to this lead, this win. That's not what happened. He brought in Farrington. He brought in Delgado. These are offensive minded players. He was out there trying to put up a third goal. Up 2-1 on the road, and he's having his team still play aggressively, still trying to basically, hey, let's get another one. Let's close this show. And that's a fresh approach that we have not seen here in a long, long time. I can't remember the last time where this team on the road took a lead and basically said, hey, let's extend the lead. And that's exactly what we saw. And I'm telling you, I think I last week I said, hey, we may not have the best defense, but if our attack gets going and starts scoring goals, that will become our best defense because the other team's going to have to stay on their back heel. And that's what we saw at the end of the game with Dallas pushing for that third goal. And I loved it. I mean, against Houston, my goodness, what a way to start off the season. I'm excited about that. Everything else that's brought up, I agree with everything they've said. And I'm just telling you, conditioning and that approach, that dog mentality, it was on full display in that match.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jose. And I think too, and Kuv, as you mentioned, it may mean for some unpredictable results that'll come down to the season, as Quill adjusts his tactics and figures out this full roster and how guys can best be used. But I think that's where I just want to go to the next question and stay with you, Jose. Is just how would you grade Eric Quill in his first official match as the new FC Dallas head coach? You already mentioned that he brought in more offensive subs rather than trying to lock things down, which a lot of coaches would choose to do. But I also noticed, for example, that he brought in his substitutes much earlier than maybe Nico or even Luxon did at times. He wanted to, I don't know, keep things fresh or just to rotate guys quicker by the 60th minute, which we're a little bit unused to. So how would you grade his performance in this first match?
I mean, it's an A plus and then some. If I could give him a higher score, I would because let's remind you that yes, Dallas did score that second goal, but he had already made subs and he had brought in Pedrinho, and he had brought in he brought in Pedrinho for Camungo who was struggling, and I forget who else he brought. But it was another young player that came on, and they were on the field when the game was tied 1-1 and helped the team get half fresh legs. But anyway, he made adjustments. In the second half. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. Houston had the better first half, Dallas struggled to get anything going on in the center, and we're becoming very one dimensional. And I'm not a tactics guy, but I could see that he had made changes, and the team was definitely playing much more different in the second half, and it showed. He made the right adjustments. That's what you want to see from your managers. You want to see those second half adjustments, and you want to see them immediately to start the half, not in the 60th minute, not in the 70th minute. You want to see those changes. You want to feel that change, and then you saw basically Dallas begin to surge and Houston begin to fade, and like I said, I'm not certain what he did, but it worked. I'm probably gonna have to rewatch it in all honesty. Um, and also, as far as Musa, when he was coming back, and giving us a little Ferreira PTSD, I didn't get that. My take was when Ferreira does it, it tended to be out of frustration, and in this case, it seemed more purposeful because you got to remember the four attackers were rotating. And as far as I can tell, Musa may have been dropping down to attack a midfielder, and we just didn't notice because they were constantly, uh, you know, moving those guys around. And so I actually at no point did I panic and say, "Oh my God, Musa's dropping back," because it seemed purposeful. It didn't seem like panic. It seemed like it was part of the plan. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that. That I think that also adds. Remember, we're a very wing centric attack. And so when Musa, let's not forget that Musa is the guy who got the assist that sprung Julio, a winger. So that's I'm not concerned with Musa dropping back because, like I said, I think with all the rotation, it's something that they plan for that they don't mind him doing.
Real quick, Kuv, your grade for Quill's first official game in charge.
I'll give it not an A plus like Jose, but I'll give it an A.
I'm at a high.
Just to be a little bit different. Yeah, I went a little bit high last week, and you went low. We're going to switch it up this week. Um, I'm going to go with an A, and the reason I don't give it an A plus is it could have been that first half could have been a lot better. Obviously, like giving him benefit of the doubt, it's the first half of the new season, um, but the change of like swapping Bernie and Julio, starting off like Julio, like Bernie on the right and Julio on the left, that should have happened a lot sooner. That swap, especially because in transition when they were already naturally swapped, you could see the attacks became a lot better. I believe we had two shots in the first half, and both came from Julio being on that left ring, exposing Dorsey not being there. Or it would start with him, we'd switch it over to Kamungo, play it inside, and go from there. Um, Something like we've mentioned, like again, I'm kind of with Jose. Um, Petar dropping back at first gave not only me a little bit of the PTSD from Jesus, but it also didn't because if he dropped, Lucho pushed forward, or if he dropped, Lucho would stand next to him or near him, and Julio or Kamunga would bomb forward. The only thing that I would work on to make this better, at least for now, obviously it could look a lot more fluid, it could look a lot more different in 2 to 3 weeks from now when everyone's more fit and the system's more known and being seen, would be Bernie has got to learn and get the Nico Ball wingback brain out of his head to go and run him behind. I was harping on it last year. He kept trying to run him behind, and Nico didn't like that. Bernie, you could see he was second guessing himself. Anytime he had open space to run, can I make this run? Am I going to get seen? Am I going to waste my energy? Am I going to do this? And that'll mess with your head as a young player because you're trying to develop your skill set. Um, Besides those small little tweaks, Quill did amazing. Really good tactics to break down Houston, and those kind of tactics where if you have dogs running around for 90 minutes, pushing and grinding, results, you can go far in this league.
Ishmael, how about you? How would you grade him?
Um, I mean, this will be kind of a barefaced response with an A plus, but that's only because we have this team that I don't mean to harp on it, but we won one game on the road last year. One game. And I don't know how long before we had a record that poorly on the road. But it's been a while because we have been one of those teams that's been either middle of the pack with away wins or do pretty well away. Like it's never been like that bad if my memory serves. Maybe a couple seasons only 3 or 4 wins away. Um, but that this is a hump that especially last season, and again, Quill doesn't have a lot to do with this, but when you don't win games away, when you don't get points away, after a while, no matter how good your form is, that's going to get to you. And it could have gotten to this team, right? Yeah, we it's a pretty flipped roster where a lot of players aren't coming back, but a decent amount of them are. A decent amount of the leaders are where you have players like Leggett, like Musa, like Ibiaga, like Paz, like Farfan, who were part of that crop. In some ways, probably feel responsible for the team not doing well last year. And they came out and yeah, the first half was poor. That second half, I mean, the only chance Houston had in the second half was the McGlynn shot that hit the post. That's literally everything that comes to mind from that second half. A team that we've been concerned about defensively played very well in those last 45 minutes. We talk about how good the attack adapted with the Kamunga Julio switch, with the switching of all the players, Musa ending up in the cam position. I was kind of a lot more impressed with how we looked defensively in that second half because when a team like Houston that is possession heavy concedes a goal like they did, that first goal that they conceded against us, that usually lights a fire under most players. Um, and we held strong. I mean, I know we're going to talk later about which players impress us the most, and I mean, I'll stake my claim to Asazi, but it was a whole unit that did that with Leggett and Ramiro in the final in the first half of that second half. Even when Siki came on, it was strong, and part of that has to do with players, part of that has to do with coaching. I'll just give Quill the A+. Maybe the standards are low. I don't know.
Yeah, an away win in this league, in almost any league in the world, but
against a rival,
against a rival.
your toughest rival. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll take it. Well, good job, Quill. And Ishmael, we're going to stay with you, and because you already led into the next question, which is, which debutant for FC Dallas impressed the most? And yeah, I mean, I thought it was a stretch for Osaze to start this match, and not only did he start, he was amazing. What
Yeah,
would you say about that performance?
I think the biggest thing is he was so smooth on the ball. I know we don't have any clips on us probably, but there were several moments where he was like fainting away attackers, just like as smooth as I've ever seen a center back do on this team. Um, I don't know, and then that's the flashy part of his game, right? Where he does a little shimmy where he doesn't really lose the ball. I don't remember him missing a pass. Um, but he was a stability that I think we need when we have a player like Ibiaga that is mistake prone. Ibiaga did not have a horrible game. It wasn't his best, but even his ceiling is not as high. Um, I think Osazi's ceiling is really high. Like, I mean, I forget who mentioned it, but I think some people on the FC Dallas Agenda pods predicted that he would be a best 11 defender. Um,
Yep.
Again, it's still very early, but I mean, if y'all remember him making a mistake, just correct me. I don't remember it. Like, it
Just
was
that, just that,
extremely smooth.
just that foul late in the game, but that got him a
You're
yellow. But
right,
that
you're right. The foul.
probably probably fatigue.
Which, yeah, which was a foul. I don't think it was a yellow. Ref was still in preseason mode.
Yeah.
But like aside from that, like never losing the ball. Most of his tackles were pretty clean. He covered Ibiaga a lot in the second half when attackers were running in behind. It was the most complete performance I've seen from um a player's debut here. in years. Better, in my opinion, maybe hindsight is 2020, but better than Velasco's first game. Better than who else had a really good first game?
Ricarte,
Yeah,
Acosta.
probably better than Andres Ricarte. Like it was incredible.
Mm,
Kuv, we'll
you're
jump
muted.
to you now. Same question. Thank you. Uh, I got my dryer going in the background. It's like I want to when it makes that buzzy noise, cut my mic a little bit. But so Osaze's off, But is there another debutant that you're like, hey, uh, credit to this guy for his work?
Man, I want to pull up his stats real quick just so I can give him some amazing props. Ramiro. I will go to Ramiro real quick. I was really impressed with him because something that I was intrigued by is we still don't have a definitive like six on the roster. But whenever we started the offseason rebuild, everyone was comparing Ramiro to an Alara um, or a replacement for Alara. Obviously, no one, I don't think, hardly can replace the quality of Alara on this roster. But something that I kept trying to tell people was if you watch Ramiro play, he has experience at right back, which in the Brazilian leagues, you don't usually get attacking fullbacks. You get some, and those are usually the ones that go off to Europe and play abroad. You have defensive fullbacks, which is what Ramiro played. Ramiro's stats was 91% passing, 30 of 33, with 45 total touches in the game. He played 2 of 2 for long balls, which, again, playing those ringers in behind, needed. 2 tackles, 3 interceptions, 7 defensive actions, 8 recoveries. It was only dribbled past once. He won um, about 50% of his ground duels and only committed 2 fouls. One was a yellow card, which is a professional foul. You gotta do what you gotta do. But the other foul was one of those. It looked like a clean tackle from the corner where we were practically standing on top of. But what do I know? I wasn't on the field. Um, so one of those things. Ramiro played an outstanding game, and he's not going to get the same praise as an Osaze because center back problems have been woeful. So seeing a really good center back brings eyes. Right back has not been great and has been poor. Love Emma, that's my boy, but has not been the best standards. But Shaq is a huge upgrade. He'll get some applause. Julio scored. He'll get applause. Lucho is Lucho. He'll get applause. But Ramiro is not going to get those flowers because of his position, but also not many people were like super excited by him. I think Romero was probably our third or fourth best player of the match, um, and was very important and pivotal in keeping everything structurally intact in Quill's formation, but also being the glue that held that team together. And you can see him, even though he didn't have that captain's armband on, he was bossing people around, including Lucho. Like, hey, Lucho, go press. Hey, Lucho, go. He's not afraid to talk. He's not afraid to speak. It's something you really need for a DM, especially a Bulldog DM that's going to be running around the pitch nonstop.
Jose, anyone you want to add, or does that cover the
Well,
main?
well, I will give Julio his love because let remember all the questions about him coming in. Oh, this guy is a guy who's just a super sub. He's never played more than 60 minutes or something like that. There was a lot of questions about his durability. You know, uh, is he really a guy who's going to be a full time starter for you? Man, that goal, he was sprinting out of his mind in the 76th minute and just leaving everybody behind.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, this guy is going full speed in the 76th minute. This guy is going to be a nightmare matchup for many, many teams because he's showing you that, hey, some players are just ready to become, everyday starters, every week starters. And I think Julio has basically said, hey, I'm not a guy who can only play X amount of minutes. Here we are late in the game, and I'm gonna beat everybody, and that's exactly what he did, and that's something that is gonna terrify a lot of teams. Like I said, that kind of attack will scare teams into refusing to come forward against Dallas late in the game, if they're holding on for a draw or something like that, you will literally see teams bunker, then refuse to attack Dallas going forward because of plays like that. If Julio can do that late in the game, my goodness, he's he's somebody that I know his stats weren't great. It's just the fact that that man, you know, out beat everybody out that late in the game, and was still basically the fastest guy on the field that late in the game to
Yeah.
score the goal. You have to respect that. You got to. That's impressive in my book.
Good stuff. And I'll just give some love as well to Pedrinho, who what a story. And on a weekend when as I was watching the games I did, that there were a lot of former MLS Next Pro players making the jump. I mean, on Houston, I credit to their center back who I think played primarily for Dynamo 2 last year and was forced to start because they sold their best defender and someone else was out sick. He
The week
stepped up
up,
and credit. I mean, the kid played well. I think he was twice a Big Ten Defender of the Year in college. So a nice
Mm-hmm.
a nice pickup there. Looks like they have to build around. But several games had these guys making debuts and given a chance to shine. And so Pedrinho, who he looked like he was making his first step at this level, right? But it looked like he also settled into the game a little bit. So just a cool little story for us to watch and see how many more minutes he gets as the season unfolds. We don't know. As we start to shift toward the show, I think we've already kind of covered my third question, which was going to be, who do you want to see more of going forward? And we've already been, we've already highlighted Bernie didn't have the best game. There's a lot of pieces on this roster. I mean, we can't really blame Sebastian or Farfan. They just had very solid games that we've come to respect, come to know and expect from them. And getting to see a guy like Patrickson Delgado come off the bench and get some more minutes after the team purchased him. But I just think it's going to be interesting to see what's coming up. So I want to look bigger picture for those of you who were able to. Now, maybe you weren't able to watch some of the other games over the course of the weekend, but curious if there were any other stories, any other games that you go like, wait a minute. Of course, you don't want to panic after the first Saturday and Sunday of this long season. So when you see San Jose trounce Real Salt Lake 4-0, you can't just say like, oh, San Jose is going to be a problem. Well, coached by it's going to be a Hall of Fame coach, of course, they're going to be a problem for a lot of teams. But let's maybe not go or San Diego getting a win against Seattle. I mean, I'm curious if there were any Ishmael, starting with you,
LA.
any other stories that jumped out at you from this weekend that would give you pause or have you thinking ahead?
San Diego beat LA Galaxy, but
Oh,
that's actually a
sorry,
good
Yep.
segue.
sorry.
But that's actually a good segue where like I think the biggest thing, and as a Western Conference team, that's kind of what I've been focusing on because those are the teams that I'm more in the know about, probably care about more just based off of who we're playing. I think the West is pretty open this year. Like I way more than I thought. I thought that the level was gonna drop because you see what they had to do with the LA Galaxy team and they had to retool that roster to meet cap compliance. You have a Seattle team that's going to be playing like 120,000 games this season. An LAFC team that again is going like almost every season it seems like are just rot rotate two starters out of the team and then bring in two new ones, which means that there isn't a lot of stability. The Western Conference is pretty open. There's a lot of teams that have uh, high ceilings, and those same teams probably have really low floors. I mean, again, first game can't overreact. But I remember someone on Third Degree mentioned that LA Galaxy would not make the playoffs, and that was like their hot take of the season. I mean, you watch a game like that where they just could not break down a San Diego team to save their life, and I mean, you just have to start like you just have to start having those questions. If the West is as open as it seems, when you have Portland falling apart, when you have Austin barely limping over a Kansas City team that lost against a college team in the preseason, like it's really wide open. Again, Dallas is not guaranteed playoffs, is not guaranteed even top six, but I mean, I just feel like the Western Conference is going to be very inconsistent in comparison to the Eastern Conference. That means that there will be opportunities. There will be chances to steal a point, to steal 3 points. With a team that is like focused on being dogs, that's kind of going to be a lot of mentality, especially when it comes to away games. You're going to have to try to steal those points to make ground on some of the teams that have higher floors. And I think that this team could do that just based off of the competition. Again, just game one.
Just game one, right? So yeah, so San Diego beating LA Galaxy. It was Charlotte who tied Seattle. Seattle
Yep.
dropped points at home, and Vancouver, who looked like the best offensive team in Major League Soccer with just their passing and their abilities. Oh my goodness, over Portland, who looked pretty woeful. But it's the first weekend, you know.
And of course, I just put an asterisk on those wins. I mean, RSL, they lost a lot of people, just like Houston. They're not a team that are there yet. And yes, it's stunning that they lost 4-0, but not surprising. Portland, come on now, they got rid of Evander. You're gonna miss a guy like that. You're not gonna replace him overnight again. And it's some of these wins. It's you have to come in fit. You have to have your players hungry, and you got to take those chances to take advantage of the other teams who are. If you think your team is not cohesive, you think your team is not, you know, they're the same way. So it's who's willing to take those chances, who's willing to take risks, and Quill did that by rolling out guys that we did not think would start in Ramiro, Acosta, and our new center back. I mean, everyone saw that lineup and go, "Holy crap, Quill's going for it." This is massive that he's got guys that have been here, haven't really practiced an entire week together, and throws them all in the lineup because they were his best players, and he knew it. And let's face it, the teams that won in week one are the teams that took the chances, and it's very important for those teams: San Diego, San Jose, Dallas. It's very important to get confidence. Those wins breed confidence because let's face it, Seattle will be Seattle, and they'll rebound at some point. Same thing with LAFC. I wouldn't be surprised if the Galaxy make some kind of rebound also. But it's the teams that retooled heavily, that maybe have new managers that are young. Confidence, you need it early in the season, and I'm very happy to see FC Dallas be one of those teams that gained a lot of confidence in week one.
Kuv, anything you want to add?
Man, one game that I did not expect to go the way it did was the Philly and Orlando game. Philly is one team that a lot of people you're either one end or the other on Philly. You're either still the really good team that can go and push for MLS Cup like they did 2 years ago, or they're terrible and they're going to not make the playoffs like they did last year. Not many people really look at Philly in the middle, and I was one of those people that didn't think Philly would make playoffs this year, or if they did, they'd barely scrape in. But they took again. I know Orlando lost Facundo Torres. They're losing other pieces too, but Orlando doesn't typically lose at home, and they got thwomped 4-2. It should have been 4-0. In all honesty, the two goals Orlando got were a little bit scrappy, a little bit unlucky for Philly to concede. Typical first week jitters, first week non cohesion, but that was the game that stuck out to me. A huge result that way, and then also another one that stuck out that we didn't talk about was which kind of has me solidified in my belief in Atlanta is that Atlanta performance. Latte Law, I thought was going to be not necessarily a flop, but I thought it was going to be a Pity Martinez 2.0, and he shut me up within 30 minutes, like I think 40 minutes scoring a brace. Atlanta looked disgustingly dangerous. Again, they're playing Montreal. Never
They
really
They look
superior
like
defensive team, but
they
they
look like
looked like
MLS
Atlanta
Cup winning
United.
Atlanta.
Yeah, they looked like Atlanta United that won MLS Cup, which will be scary to watch and exciting to watch. So thank God we don't have to play them twice a year and only have to play them when we beat them in MLS Cup final this year. But still, they look
Yes.
they look phenomenal. Um, which again, I think the East is going to be tight at the top four, kind of mid 5 through 10, and then drop off. I think the West, like Ishmael was saying, is like completely wide open with the moves that everyone has made, and teams like RSL, teams like Houston, teams like um, the Galaxy, who have a lot of holes. But we still have about another month of the season before rosters are technically solid. So we can still be bringing in players for a month. So these teams that are getting thumped 4-0 or 2-0 at home against a expansion team, it might not be the same come April. You never know. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot to watch for.
I,
It was fun. It was a fun
I did
weekend.
I did watch one other game. I watched two other games, but I did watch one other game specifically, and I'll talk about it when we get to picks for next week.
All right. Well, let's wrap up the show here. Uh, and gosh, I'm so been so hyper focused on everything today. Who is Dallas playing this weekend?
Colorado Rapids in Denver,
Oh boy,
and and
no,
and
please.
and let me tell you, I'm very excited about that match because I watched the St. Louis match, and St. Louis. Don't forget they play very vertical. They're a team that's basically just gonna play, route one. The old just come straight at you. And I will tell you right now, Colorado being in Concacaf League, their priority is beating LAFC, which they won 2-1 the first match, and they play them tomorrow. So they'll have played. Dallas will be their fourth match in 2 weeks. And let me tell you, against St. Louis, they played scared. Their attack consisted of just their nine bombing forward by himself most of the time. They had two shots the entire match, zero of them on goal, and they were playing defense the majority of the match. It was St. Louis basically coming after them the entire match. St. Louis had 17 shots, five of them on goal, and it was a one-sided match with the Rapids basically playing defensively, hoping to catch St. Louis sleeping, and they're gonna play Dallas the same way. Because they're gonna put all their money on trying to beat LAFC tomorrow. To them, that's the more important game right now, and they'll be happy to play for a draw against Dallas and try to sneak out with a counterattack victory. If they can steal 3 points, but make no mistake, this is a game where Dallas can get points. There are points to be had against a Rapids team who will be exhausted, will be probably rotated, and will not be looking to come after FC Dallas, especially not after what they saw, what Dallas did to Houston. They're basically the St. Louis game all over again. It's going to be them bunkering down, sending one or two guys on the attack, and it's going to be very important for the back line to not get caught napping. As long as Dallas does that, there'll be opportunities. We'll get to see how FC Dallas can break down a team that's going to play, low block and dare
So
you to
what's your
charge forward.
prediction then? What's your prediction?
I think Dallas breaks them down. Uh, my brother-in-law, who's on here, he doesn't want to hear it, but I'm going to say it's because of the low block and whatnot. It's they're going to try to get like a set piece or something like that. I'm gonna say 1-0 FC Dallas, and frankly, I would not be surprised if it's 2-0. Like I said, Rapids are not. They're not playing for a win. They're playing for a draw, and they will play that way. And they may try to, like I said, they'll try to catch Dallas sleeping here and there, but two shot attempts an entire match against St. Louis, none of them on goal. Yeah, it was that bad. And I was watching that game and I was saying, wow, there's like one guy coming forward, and there's like four defenders back there, and that was the entire match. There was very few times where I saw no, more than three guys join the attack. So it was basically, hey,
All right.
let's hope we catch them, and they're going to be the same thing against Dallas. And
Kuv, your
so there you
prediction?
go.
I think. Let's see if I can go 100% because I got not the prediction of who scored, but the score line at least correct. I'm going to go with a 1-0 scrappy win against Colorado. Going back against our head to head history, I looked at it before we started the show. We have not won in Colorado since I think it was one of the last games in 2014, and it was some red card that they got in the 79th minute, and we scored a pen in the 56th with a Blas Perez penalty. And then the last time we got any type of result of points was October 7th, 2017, with an Atiba Harris fluke. I think it was off his back goal from a corner kick or something. And it got us a point in like the 80th minute or something, like 50th, 60th minute, something like that. So, again, games in Colorado are never fun. You're playing at altitude. No one is really, truly full season fitness yet. You're going to have winded players on both sides. Um, and I think that's where Colorado will still have an advantage. Like their players will still be tired from trying to play 90 minutes of defensive ball in LA tomorrow. But they're also used to playing tired in altitude. They've been training in altitude. Um, People say it's not a big deal. Man, it is a big deal. I went to New Mexico last summer, and just for a couple of days, it was a big deal. Imagine Colorado, which is higher.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think a lot of people take for granted and underestimate. But again, I think the bulldog mentality is gonna get Colorado. I mean, like Jose was saying, St. Louis is honestly just not a great team, um, and they were only able to get two shots against St. Louis. That's that's not even that's just terrible. There's no other word for it. It's horrendous. If we don't get at least a result, a point on the road in Colorado, it'll be a disappointment.
Ishmael,
I just
close
want
it
to
out with
I
you.
just want to make before Ishmael says something. I just want to make a little correction for Couv. Colorado can't play defensively against LAFC. It's 2-1 with a road goal. That would go if they play defensively. It's going to go into extra time. Do they really want to go into extra time and then PKs? I don't think so. They're going to have to take their chances. So they can't afford to play defensively. They have to try to go for that goal to ensure it doesn't go into extra time because otherwise they go to extra time against LAFC and then come against Dallas even more tired. Sorry, carry on.
Ishmael?
Um, Damn, I usually want to go with a different result than everybody else because I don't know, having the same guess is kind of boring. But I will go with Kuz's result with a 1-0 win, mainly because I actually think it'll be a lot closer than we're giving them credit. I feel like um we like to reflexively respond to what we see in these few games. Um,
Yeah.
the way I see it is Colorado is about to be kicked out of CONCACAF Champions League. I don't think they're gonna get through LA.
Ouch.
Um, they just drew against the St. Louis team, um, barely hanging on. I think it was like what I heard was Zach Steffen looked like prime 2018 Zach Steffen.
He did.
Um, so like if that's what you had in the first 10 days of the season, you're going to want to prove yourself. And they're going to want to prove themselves against Dallas. And I think that's what's going to open up the game. Not saying that I don't think Dallas could play well against a low block. We haven't seen it yet. But I think that it's actually going to be a lot more open than we think. I think it's going to be a decent back and forth. Because, I mean, you can't get kicked out of CONCACAF Champions League, a tie to St. Louis, and then lose at home to Dallas, right? You can't do that, or else the few fans you have are gonna start losing their minds. Um, but I think it's gonna be a game where again the altitude's gonna play a factor. It's not gonna be as cold as it was when LA came to town. I think it's gonna be in the around the 40s around that time in the day. We're back to not insanely cold temperatures. Thank fucking goodness. Um, but I think it's going to be a lot more open. I think it's going to be a game where, again, it's going to be dictated by one moment. Both keepers will probably stand on their heads, but we're going to get a Logan Farrington goal in the 75th plus minute, sometime in those last 15. Logan showing again why he should be starting somewhere on this team.
All right. Good. Well, I'll be the pessimist because I just think Colorado's the worst place to play. One of the worst places to play. And Dallas struggles. A lot of teams struggle to get a result, but I'm happy with the 1-1 draw. I'm happy with coming down to earth a little bit, but still also finding that nice goal. And so an away draw in Colorado though is nothing to sneeze at. That's a solid point to be had.
If we get a point against Colorado, that means that we only need 5 points out of our last 15 away games to match what the amount of away points that we had last season.
That's right.
Just so we're clear.
You're not
But
wrong.
I want to be surprised. I'm ready
And
to
if
be
we get
surprised.
and if we get 3 points, we'll need even less.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm.
Well, good. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks from Marcin for the comment. Thanks for all your perspectives on what a weekend it was for Major League Soccer and especially for FC Dallas, for Eric Quill, and for the company. We got a lot to look forward to. So appreciate all of you who download, who subscribe to the podcast and listen in. Stay right here. Watch for more content, more goodies as the week unfolds. Good night, everybody.
Good night.